Personal story segment time. Former Al-Qaeda recruiter and propagandist, now back in the American fold. His name is Jesse Morton. While he worked for Al-Qaeda, they called him Yunus Abdullah Muhammad. Born in Pennsylvania, 2010, he fled to Morocco, where he was arrested and held in a prison there. He's taken back to the USA in 2011, pleading guilty to various terror charges. Now, in a stunning turn of events, Mr. Morton is working at the George Washington University Center for Cyber and Homeland Security. He joins us now from Washington. First of all, why did you join Al-Qaeda?
Well, the process of my radicalization and my entrance into adherence to and affinity for Al-Qaeda's ideology started at a very young age. I had a very traumatic upbringing, and I think that what that did was it made me open up to alternative ideologies. Thereafter, I identified with Islam after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and could relate with a lot of his story. So I was open to radical interpretations from the very beginning. Criminal behavior was also an underpinning element of my youth, and during that time I went to jail and was radicalized by a preacher in jail shortly before 9/11. So by the time 9/11 happened, I had sort of a natural inclination to adopt the worldview of the jihadist. It gave me an opportunity to express my rage and frustration through a countercultural movement, albeit a violent one. That process continued to unfold, and I continued to get deeper and deeper into the ideology of Al-Qaeda, and eventually graduated from role to role, first as a student, then as an adherent, and then as a propagandist.
All right, let me stop you there. So you're in the USA. You didn't go to Pakistan or any of those places. You're here in the United States, and you're working with Al-Qaeda here. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct. At the time, Al-Qaeda was changing its strategy. They were becoming less a top-down hierarchical organization and more decentralized with regard to inspiring others to take up the cause. And they were stressing that individuals everywhere needed to concentrate on propagating the ideology, that was one of the ways that they were going to sustain their movement.
And where were you doing this physically in the USA? Where were you?
I was in New York City. I started working on behalf of the Salafi jihadist ideology and propagating it in about 2004. I was first with a movement in New York called the Islamic Thinkers Society. Then I started my own entity, Revolution Muslim, in late 2007, and ran that up until the point of my incarceration in May of 2011.
Were you worried about the FBI and people coming after you? Was that something that you were worried about here?
Well, it was quite obvious that we were certainly under investigation, but we carefully attempted to toe the line between free and illegal speech. And so we believed that we were within the legal realm of the law. And so, of course, we knew we were being monitored, but I think that when you're so drunk on an ideology and committed to a cause, the risk associated with activism becomes something that you actually enjoy, believe it or not.
The cat and mouse game. So then they got you. All right, you went to Morocco, they pick you up there, they bring you back. What did you serve? How much time?
Well, originally I was sentenced to 11.5 years. I was picked up in May of 2011, shortly after Osama bin Laden was killed. But I was afforded the opportunity to cooperate with law enforcement. I had many different variables that contributed to a de-radicalization. And ultimately, the judge on the case, with the recommendations of the prosecutor, released me after 3 years and 9 months. So you cooperated with the federal government against the other Muslim radicals, right? Well, after I determined that the ideology I held was completely false, there were still factions of the network that were continuing to reach out to me. On top of that, I had analytical analysis that was able to make a contribution in how we assess risk. I also
so you helped against the jihad. You helped in a variety
in many
of ways.
Different capacities, yes.
So they cut you some slack. And now what are you doing at George Washington University?
Well, upon my release, a lot of statements were coming from politicians like the President, from the House and Homeland Security Committee, from different factions of the policy community and the counterterrorism community generally about the value of former extremists. And so I decided to attempt to find an avenue by which I could operate as a former in the U.S. ambit. Program on Extremism is doing some of the best work in the field of countering violent extremism and educating the public and policymakers about that. And I found it an ideal home. After a long process, I was hired, and I've been given an enormous opportunity.
So now you're with the good guys.
Absolutely. I mean, my worldview has totally changed. Now I think rationally.
This story is amazing, Mr. Morton, on two levels. Number one, redemption. which
Yes.
we believe in here very much. And number two, now you're a patriot, I hope. I mean, I hope you're helping protect Americans, because we need all the protection we can get. Last word.
I think at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, I was able to realize the value of the American system. I realize now today that it's not just about who they are, it's about who we are, and
That's
that
right.
we have a system of life that is in many ways provable. And one can look at it from a factual status and see that the American system, democracy, liberalism, and freedom is a way that liberates everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. Fascinating story. Good luck to you. Thank you very much.